Okay, so da-da-da-da-da, long term is at 2.1, so 2.55. Okay, so so yesterday we were at 2.55 combined. And you want, I mean, especially when you get a big move like this, you always want to see like, how is this going to affect us and what is this doing for us? So today, I think I ask you to log in all the time. Okay, so today we are at 2.28. So it's up 128,000 from where we were yesterday at 11 o'clock. So not basically 24 hours ago. We were at, let me make sure I got this right, 2.1 million, and now we're at 2.28. So that's how much a 3% move in the market does for us, basically. A 2.5% move in the market is we're moving 1.25 million. So we're moving 1.25 million on a 2.5% move in the market. So it's not the same correlate, it's not the same number, but we're about 25% correlated to the S&P, basically. Like we move up 20. The portfolio moves 0.25, not 0.25%. Sorry, the portfolio moves up 0 or 0.62. That's what it'd be. It'd be 0.625% is about what we're moving for each 2.5%. So 1/4 of the move is what we gain. Why? Because we have hedges and we sell short calls and things like that. And there's a lot of reasons for the movement. Also, we have Alibaba, which is totally being destroyed. It's down to 100. That's killing this portfolio. You know, but it balances out, and it's not a good time to be in Alibaba or China or anything like that. But Vail, on the other hand, is skyrocketed. In fact, Vail we should be covering. Let's see where that is. Chart. VALE, should have covered it already. Yeah, look at that. Knew it. Oh well. Anyway, so Vail we should have covered. But it doesn't matter. That's not the point. The point is we're at 2.2 million now. And we'll see how the short-term portfolio is holding up. Okay, we just did this yesterday. This is without the adjustments having taken place yet. So we should actually be doing better. So the short term is now 441. So what do we say? 2.2 plus 441 is 2.66. And yesterday, when we did the review, we were at 255. So we've gained about $100,000 on the move today. And as I said, it was down 145,000 from our high. So we are now right back at 2.66. Obviously, we're right next to where we were at our highest point ever. And obviously, you know, you never expect to hold the highest point ever. It's just luck when you get that. But the bottom line is we're pretty well. First of all, the great news is we're at almost where we were with our all-time high, except the market is much lower. So we've done a great job ratcheting down and hedging, and that way we're getting more bang for our buck going up now, right? Because we're nowhere near the highs. And clearly we're having a positive reaction on a bullish day. So that means if we keep going up and we do get back to the highs, which we do not believe in, but if we keep going up and we go back to the highs, we will actually be in better shape than we were before. It's not an accident. That's our whole strategy, right? I mean, the whole point to hedging, and I talked about this a little bit yesterday, but let's make sure everybody understands the concept of it. See, the thing about hedging isn't to make it impossible to lose. That's ridiculous. That's like over-insuring. In other words, you buy life insurance, right? Or forget life insurance. You buy health insurance, right? Health insurance doesn't stop you from getting sick, and it doesn't mean it's free if you get sick. It means it will mitigate the damages if you get sick, right? It's not going to replace you or have you or make everything perfect again, and it doesn't prevent you from getting sick. It's just if you get sick, it puts you in a financial position to recover financially pretty quickly, that you're not put into a deep hole from being sick. That's what a hedge in the stock market is like. You're not replacing the losses, 100% of your losses. That's over hedging. It's too much. That would be like me paying for health insurance, and instead of paying I don't even know what it was, 2,000, instead of paying 2,000 a month for health insurance, I pay 3,000 a month or 4,000 a month because I want to have a bodyguard walking around with me who makes sure that nothing happens to me and keeps sick people away from me and so on and so forth. Now celebrities do this, but you know, they actually have people make sure they're kept in their little bubbles. So that's, you know, I can go overboard with my insurance protection, whatever you want to call it, but it's still not going to guarantee nothing happens. Nothing's going to guarantee that. And you'll find that since it costs X to mitigate the damages and it costs Y to make it much less likely that you'll have it, but you still need to have the damages mitigated even if it does all you've done is make it a rare occurrence that something bad happens to you. It's just not worth it in the long run. When you do the math, when you actualize it, right, which is what insurance companies do, you find that you end up spending more money protecting yourself. It's like when you go to Best Buy and they try to sell you a contract on everything, right? You buy a pair of headphones, they say, oh, here's get a service contract. You buy a phone, here's a service contract, whatever. Meanwhile, the reality is, how many times do you actually use these service contracts? And if you think about it, the one time you use it, it usually has a deductible anyway. Like Apple carries bullshit. Jackie had to replace the screen on her what do you call it? A MacBook. Yeah, she has a MacBook, and she's had it for 6 years. This is her old one. She had it for 6 years. So we've been paying $200 a year for a service contract, and now the screen breaks and they charge her $200 anyway, but they replace the screen. She's thrilled because she needs her old laptop, and because that's when she leaves. The other one's like a computer. She leaves it at home, and at school at home, and the other one is the one she travels with. So so the screen cracked, and she's nothing else has gone wrong with it over 6 years, and frankly, it's almost. I said to her, if it costs more than $200, don't even do it, because it's better. You may as well get a new one at this point, so it's getting old. But the point is, for $1,200, we could have had $1,200 plus the $200 that we're paying to fix it, and that's $1,400. We could have bought a new computer. It wasn't worth insuring, and that's why people who have a certain amount of wealth tend to self-insure a lot of things, because it's just not worth it to pay out. This, the chance of something happening versus the certainty of paying out for no reason. It doesn't equate on a lot of things. Some things it does, some things it doesn't. It's like people who do the house stuff, right? For all your appliances, you can get a service contract that guarantees they'll replace your hot water heater and so on and so forth. Now I've had that. I've had a service contract where the hot water heater broke and the guy came and put a new one in. The fridge broke, they came and gave us a new fridge. Good, that's a good service contract. In reality, though, the cost of the contract over the time we were in the house, because these were things that broke down in the house after 10 years, 15 years, a couple of things broke. Could have paid for brand new appliances, and it wouldn't have mattered. But the thing is, it's sort of like a forced savings program. And also, if there's some sort of huge disaster and multiple things break at the same time, then great. But it's a way to plan out your expenses more so than actually doesn't save you any money. This is the same thing. You're planning out the expense of a stock market correction, because stock markets correct. They occasionally correct, and you have to pay insurance so that you're covered when that happens. So I was going to do the math of it. So we started out with a $500,000 long-term portfolio and a $100,000 short-term portfolio, and the job of the short-term portfolio is to hedge the long-term portfolio. Now we have a $2.2 million long-term portfolio, and oddly enough, we have a 444,000. So if you divide the same thing, if you divide 2.2 by 5, it's exactly 444,000. So we have kept our ratio of long-term to short-term portfolio the same for over 2 years now. It's been the same. It's been going up, but the way we balance everything out, we try to always stay very well balanced. And I don't do this on purpose. I don't purposely worry about the ratios. It just kind of works out that way because the proper amount of hedging for a $2 million portfolio is to have a $400,000 short-term portfolio. That's the correct way to do it. And in this case, this $400,000 portfolio, and again, rule of thumb, this $400,000 portfolio will pay back $1 million. We worked it out yesterday, so if you guys want to go over it, it's all there in text. It has $1 million of upside protection, and actually, I think we added a little bit, so it's it's 1.024. So we have 1.024 of upside protection, mostly in this TZA spread, which is half of it. But the point is, this number will triple in a 20. Always. Now, these are my rules. Okay, these aren't like the rules of the market. I made all this shit up. Keep that in mind. Okay, this is my system. I made it up. I didn't copy it from someone. There's no book on this stuff that I haven't written it. So this is my system for balancing things out, keeping hedges, and so on and so forth. So in my case, I like to be covered for a 20% market correction. And why is that? Because look how long it takes to grind out a 20% market correction. Even if you go back to 9/11, if I think we can on Yahoo, is one of these a chart? Here we go. Here's the NASDAQ. Okay, so let's take the NASDAQ back to Okay, so even on, that's kind of crazy, isn't it? So it was September 11th, 2001, right? Well, that's a terrible example. We were already down so much from the market crash, it barely affected the market. All right, so even in the dot-com crash, right? Let's zoom in a little bit more on the dot-com crash. Here's the actual 9/11 event. 3/10/11. So okay, so market was closed, so it's kind of wacky, right? So on 9/10 we were at 1350, and then on 9/11 we went down to 1126. That's 20% though. In the dot-com crash, and these are weeks, by the way, these are not days. In the dot-com crash, interval 1 week, see? In the dot-com crash, we were at 4,700, and then 1 week later, we're at 4,300, so that's down about 10%. And then we're down almost, 32 is what? It's like about a third. We're down about 33%, but it took 3 weeks. And that's the key. First of all, there's a break on the market, and there wasn't back then, but there's a 10% break on the market now. So they're going to stop trading at 10%. So it's not that likely. And again, you're over-insuring. If you try to say, oh my, it could happen, anything could happen. You can get hit by a bus on the way to make the trade. Even if you're in your living room, it could happen. If you're on a high floor, it's not too likely. But you have to play for what's probable and what's likely. But at the same time, you have to ultimately have a recovery plan if everything is a complete catastrophe. You have to have a New York gets nuked kind of plan. And if you don't have that, and if you live in New York, it's a different sort of plan. But major city getting nuked has to be a plan in your life that you have to have somewhere in the back of your mind. What do I do if everything falls to shit? And we had this conversation back in 2008 because people thought that the entire global markets were going to collapse and that everything would fall apart and the monetary system would collapse and so on and so forth. it would be if money would no longer be acceptable, if the money collapsed, if the monetary system collapsed. At the time we talked about it, I said people say, oh, we have to have gold. I'm like, no, what are you going to do with the gold? I'm like, if I have to have something in the event of a collapse, I would fill my basement with water filters. Because believe me, people will give you all the gold you want if you have a water filter because they need the freaking water. The gold's not doing them any good. It's like you need clean water, and if everything collapses and people aren't working at the treatment facilities anymore, then you need a water filter more than pretty much anything else, more than toilet paper, more than most things. You can't live. So if there's an apocalypse, different things become valuable. We thought there's a Gilligan's Island like that. There's an episode of Gilligan's Island where the rich guy Thurston Howell he's paying out all this money. He's got all this cash, right? This is one of the early shows. So he's got a big suitcase full of cash, and they're on a desert island. And he starts paying people with the cash. And at first, everybody's like, great, cash, blah, blah, blah. Then after a while, everybody's got cash because he keeps paying people for stuff. So all the people have cash now, and there's nothing to do with it because there's no stores. There's nothing else. And it shows how ridiculous the system is. People think that you have something of value, but it turns out not to be of value at all. So my point being that you have to have a backstop of something of value that you have. When it all hits the fan, if the market closes, and I was in New York, I was not in New York, I was in New Jersey across the river. But when 9/11 happened, the whole city was shut for, I think, 3-4 days. I mean, shut, like nothing, no electricity, they had water. Water was working. Electricity was not working for the most part. There was no phone service. There was no, we didn't have as much internet back then, but there was no phone service. There was no nothing. And the market was shut. They couldn't even get the phone lines running to make the market work. And it took about a week until they started trading again. And that was a total disaster. Now you think that's bad. That was a plane hitting a building. Imagine if they actually nuked a city. So what's your plan? And for me, it's like I think you should always have some cash, real cash. You can't count on your credit cards working. If there's a total disaster, you should always have money because people will take your money. They will take cash at least for a while. If civilization really collapses, it's a whole different thing, right? But my plan with my family, it was always like I always had a ski house in Vermont. So I was like, shit hits the fan, we're going to Vermont. Because in Vermont, they got farms. In Vermont, I can walk down the street and get milk by pulling on a cow's udder. So it's like they're more geared towards surviving if everything collapses than the people in New York would be. People in New York would start starving pretty quickly. But anyway, so we're not planning for that kind of catastrophe, but a 20% correction in the market, sure, anything could trigger that. Very easy to have a 20% correction. We just had one. The NASDAQ just finished dropping 20%. And the world didn't end or anything like that, but this is the point at which now, as we're bouncing off that 20% line, 13,500, we are now looking to say, do we add our hedges? Because that's the point. You have a week or 2 weeks before you have a 20% correction. Even in dire circumstances, it's going to be at least a week. And during that week, because we always have cash, we can add additional hedges. And if each set of the hedges pays off 3-to-1, which is the general ratio our hedge is going to pay off is 3-to-1, it means that every time we drop 20%, the first set of hedges is probably at least a double. So we can take half of the double and put it into the next set of hedges. That then doubles, and now the first set of hedges is tripled. and then we have more money, and we can just keep increasing and adding the hedges. And we did this not here in 2008. In 2001, I didn't have PSW. But we did this in 2008, and we had our hedges. We bought more hedges. We, this was a up and downy thing, but then we still had our hedges, because exactly what I'm saying to you guys now. Look how long this took to play out, right? Here's 2007. Here's 2008. Nobody paid attention to this crash. We went from 2213 to 17 something. So that's 5,000, right? So it's 5 into 22 is so it's 22%. We had a 22% correction, and people weren't that bothered by it. I was bothered by it, but other people were like, yeah. And then it came back all the way to 2000. Everyone was like, see, only a 10% correction, no big deal. And I was saying at the time, but look how much longer this is. This is 6 months later. And we were arguing about whether or not we should be back in rally mode. And then the market started falling again. It came back, and everybody was like, see? And this is when we had all the buy the dip jokes, right? This is when the whole buy the dip thing started, because that's what it was. Oh, you should have bought the dip. Oh, you bought the dip. And then here, all of a sudden, the dip buying did not work. It looked like it was going to work, but again, this is what I mean, though. You have a month, 20% correction. You have another month, 20% correction. Another month, another 20%. That was surprising to everybody. All the way down to about 1,000. It was a 66. All the indexes were down 2/3, 66% from their highs. But it doesn't happen right away, so you have a chance to hedge. So what I'm saying, or the main point of what I'm saying, is that you need to have that immediate hedge against a 20% drop. That you have to assume could happen before you can react. But a 40% drop happening before you react, extremely unlikely. So we tend to have our hedges always in place for a 20% drop. And then once you get near the 20% line, then we have to decide, do we think it can drop another 20%? And we also have to look at the performance of our portfolios. How badly did our long-term portfolio get hit? How badly did the short-term portfolio, how much did the short-term make to cover it? And as I said yesterday, we were at 2.1 million, so 2.55 combined. And we were down 145 from our 2.7 million high. But 145, let's see. 145 divided by 2,700 is 5.3%. So our combined portfolios fell 5.3% when the market was down 20%. So this is very important. That means if we cashed out, we'd have 2.55 million, right? But the market is now 85% of where it was. So that 2.5 million is going to buy us a lot more stock. So if we cashed out everything, indiscriminately cashed out, and then we just bought the S&P index at 85% off, if the index then recovered back to 100, that would be a gain of 20% from 85, or pretty much 85 times 1.2 is 102. So if we basically recovered, it's almost a 20% recovery, let's say 18 to be accurate, then our 2.4 million times, 18%, 1.18 becomes 2.8 million. So in other words, if we, without being strategic at all, the fact is that as long as we don't have to keep all of our money, we lost 5% of our total portfolio in the 20% drop. Now, of course, I'm talking about the NASDAQ drop. We don't have exclusively NASDAQ stocks, but it's a concept, So we lost about 5-6% of our portfolio in a 20% drop. We still had 2.4 million to spend. Oh yeah, and you say, oh no, that's down from or it's 2.5 actually, so it's a better number. But anyway, we still had 2.5 million to spend, down from 2.7 million before. And we say if we cashed it all, just went completely back to cash and didn't even strategically buy it, we just buy the S&P and say 85% off S&P, we'll buy it, and then it comes back up, boom, we're going to be ahead of the game when it recovers. So you're doing worse. You feel like you're not hedging enough, but you really are, because the things you can trade your current portfolio for have gotten substantially cheaper. So it's not important to protect every cent you have on the way down. Now, if the market goes down and permanently stays down, that'll suck too, right? But you know what? Now you're back to like the 1929 thing. Everybody's in the same boat. If the market completely collapses, like Russian ruble right now, whatever, if the market completely collapses and everything is wiped out, even so, if you're wiped out less than everybody else, Warren Buffett in 2008 is a good example. If you're wiped out less than everybody else, you can go around buying stuff that's a real bargain. And again, you don't have to be at the same level. You have to understand the levels have changed, and you're the guy who's got some money left. That's the key. Make sure you're liquid. And that's what we do here, because the short-term portfolio mints cash. And what's the change that we made in the short-term portfolio yesterday? The biggest move we made in the short-term portfolio was we had these three TZA 20 calls, right? They're deep in the money. They hit $20. And I said at $20, I want to buy these. We sell them for $100,000, right? We sell 50 for $100,000. That leaves us with 50 open short calls. The short calls, though, are out of the money. They're entirely premium. And so our hope was that it would bounce and we would then be able to buy these back cheaper at a later time. But we're cashing these for 20, and we're leaving these open, but then we took $25,000 and covered them some more with a longer term spread that was going to be less affected. And again, you can read all this stuff. I'm not going to go over every single thing again, because we did this yesterday. It was very detailed about exactly what we were doing and why we were doing it. So the point is, though, we did what we're supposed to do. We pumped cash, and that's what this portfolio does. It pumps out cash while the market's dropping. So we are in a nice cash position, and then we can take advantage of discounts that become available. And there are things that are crazy discounted, but we're in and again, because we're hedged, because we're well balanced, we're in no particular hurry to chase down discounts. But we have like Coinbase is gotten crazy low, and nice bounce today though. We have Alibaba, as I just mentioned, also ridiculous. Like went from 180 down to 100. Even Netflix, which I'm not the biggest fan of Netflix. But I mean, that's 50% off on Netflix also. At this price, I find them interesting. It's a subscription-based service, and I know my kids would, that is last on the list of things they would give up, basically, for whatever reason. And we just had this discussion where we were just talking to my girls about this, and I was asking them, I'm like, I like Hulu better. I really don't find there's that much stuff on Netflix, but for some reason, for kids, the way Netflix is organized and the shows that they have it's the micro shows. I'm not a big person for the micro shows. My mother too. My mother watches the weirdest little things on Netflix that I wouldn't even have the patience to find. But all these people, my mom's friends group and my kids' friends group, they talk about the shows on Netflix and they trade their ideas of what to watch, and they have these little fan bases, and that's what Netflix does on purpose. They micro target shows to very narrow specific audiences, but those audiences are like, oh my God, this is perfect for me. So, they certainly do have a working concept. I do think those post-pandemic, they drop off, and that's being reflected now in the price, but I still think this is a little overkill. So where were we? Okay, anyway, so lots of things that are on sale. There's plenty of things to buy, and we talked about that last week. I went over the list of all the things we can buy. So the key is to have some cash. Also, though, you have to realize that our entire long-term portfolio is nothing but things to buy. So what got cheap? So we start off here and we take a look at the short puts and say, who got cheap? These are all people we wanted to buy. Coinbase, there's an example. Now, Coinbase, we sold the 200 puts for $45. So our net is 155 and it's at 178. So realistically, we're at our target. We're getting around to our target. So this would be the time to put on a bigger position. I thought we did. I'm a little confused about that. Coin. Wow, okay. I thought we had a bigger position in Coinbase. So Coinbase is one I would want to add a position to. Who else? There's not too much damage here. Levi's, boring, but yes, I would want to add a position to Levi's. Las Vegas Sands, I thought that's interesting. So I'd probably want to add a position in Las Vegas Sands. I want to find out what they look like. But again, it's a $40 put. We sold it for $6, so we're net 44, and it's at 39. I'm sorry, 34, net 34, and it's at 39. It's not even actually in trouble. It only shows a lot of premium. And if we really don't mind, if I say, oh well, so you guys, I'm going to call their bluff. I'm like, go ahead and sell me for $34. Not even 34, it's $33.70. So go ahead and sell to me for $33.70. I dare you. It's like I'm not damaged by them telling me that I'm losing money on Las Vegas Sands, because I'm not losing money because I don't care. I'm not looking to sell it. I don't care. If you really want to force me to buy it for $33.70, I'll buy it. Got no problem with that. It's only 1,000 shares anyway. MGM, same thing. We bought these at the same time. See, 210. $40. Also a $40 put. Also 620. Basically the same price. And also these guys are at $40. They're not even anywhere near our price. They're more than 10%. They're 15% away from our net entry, and it looks like a bad trade. It was minus 50%, minus 40%. You got to learn to ignore that. If you're going to play this game, you got to be able to ignore that. Oh, here's a Lebu, and oh, there's one that keeps dropping. So here's Lebu, which is a biotech ETF. I don't know why nobody wants biotechs anymore. Here we got the $30 puts. We sold them for $7. That's 23, but they're at 15. So this one we have to deal with. I know. I added this spread to and this is way back from April. That's why we added this spread in the money talk portfolio, and we haven't adjusted this one yet. But this is one I would want to put money into. And by the way, and so you say, well, why haven't we done anything with this? Because there's only so much cash. It's a lot of cash. 1.8 million is cash in the long-term portfolio. So, but there's still, we want to maintain half cash. So we want to have 1.1 million. That means we really only have $700,000 to play with. And it'll go really, really fast if we start adjusting every single position that's losing money. So we want to pick and choose. And I have to decide with the biotech ETF, do we take a $14,000 loss, or do we spend $25,000 building a position on this thing? Now, most likely, I'm not going to take a $14,000 loss. I think it's ridiculously oversold. But so here's the bottom. I mean, basically, and it was lower in March, or whenever that was, or February. It was lower at some point. We ignored it then. It came back down. It's now, and now we're saying, okay, maybe this is a floor, so maybe we are going to want to get interested. But meanwhile, there's a war on and crap like that. And again, I'm talking about, before I said, what are you going to do when there's, when a city gets nuked? What would we have done? Literally last Friday or Thursday night or whatever it was that had happened, the Russians had a missile that hit a parking lot of the nuclear power of the biggest nuclear power plant in Ukraine, bigger than Chernobyl. And last night they cut the power to they didn't purposely cut the power, but their bombings cut the power to Chernobyl. So Chernobyl right now hasn't got power. and they need the power to keep everything in check over there. It's still an ongoing thing that has to be maintained and dealt with on a regular basis. It's not going to explode or melt down, but it could get out of control again. It could start releasing radioactive gas and so on and so forth. But that's, that's not a big deal compared to a city getting nuked, but it's bad. But this other nuclear plant, if they had hit the plant and it blew up like Chernobyl, all of Europe would have had radiation. It's not Fukushima. It's not way over in Japan and next to the Pacific Ocean. This is in the middle of Europe, basically on the western side of Europe. On the eastern side of Europe. So you have to pick and choose your spots, and when things are uncertain, that's part of the reason we do the hedging. Is when things are uncertain, you have to say, I'm not going to do anything because I don't know for sure which is going to be the best move yet. And we don't have to do anything with Lebu. If it pops back up and it goes back to 30, and we'll be like, oh, good, thank goodness, we're going to make the money back on those short puts. You don't have to try to save every position. You can just let them go and see. Not to mention, we can roll them to 2024, and then a year from now, we can roll them to 2025. There's never going to be an end to it. And the ETF, the nice thing about ETFs is they don't generally go bust. They don't go bankrupt. Some of them do reverse splits, which they may as well go bankrupt. But generally, they don't. They'll generally stay above a certain level, and we'll be able to fix this. But because of the uncertainty, we've been letting this go and seeing how it went. I was very, very surprised it went down this far. It's crazy, but I like it here. I still like them, so I would roll this down to a double. So in other words, we have 15 short January 30s, LABU. All right, so we have 15 short January 30 puts. Wow. Okay, so they're $17, let's say, okay? So what can I roll them to? I can roll them to something that's $8 or $7. So I can roll them to the 2024 $15 puts, which is where they are now at 15. I can roll them to 30 of these at $7. So these are, I'm sorry, what was the price here? I forgot now. It's a little lower. These are 17, and if I roll it to these at 7, that's 14. So I'm going to lose $3. So 3 times 15. So it'll cost me $4,500 to roll. But obligation-wise, I'm obligated to buy 3,015 instead of 1,030. So my obligation hasn't changed. I have the same $45,000 obligation to own Lebu no matter what. And if we spend $4,500, we originally collected $10,500. So we will still have collected $6,000 net dollars, which would be $2 per contract if we move to 30 contracts, right? And that means our net entry in 2024 would be 13, because we will have collected $2, not this much. We will have collected $2 net per contract. So at 15, we'll still be behind. We'll be showing a loss because the contract showed -7, and we only collected net 2 at that point, or something like that, whatever it works out to. And we'll be behind, but it doesn't matter. What matters, because it's all premium, what matters is, do we mind buying 3,000 shares at net 13 when it's at 15.46? And we say no. So we haven't spent any money yet. We've collected net $6,000 for the 30 short 2024 15 calls. And then we can say, okay, well, we don't mind owning $45,000 worth of this. And we can buy, let's see, these are $750, and where's $550? Maybe 23. So we could buy the 15 23 bull call spreads for $2 and let's say we buy 20 of those or 30 of those. Let's say you buy 30 of those for $6,000. Now we have a $24,000 spread plus the short call. And then we can start selling some short calls if we want to. I don't want to right now because it's too soon. But, you know, Lebu is very volatile, and you can sell the $20 calls of April for $1. So if I have 30 spreads, and oh, by the way, I'm sorry, we spent $6,000 on the bull call spreads, on the 1523 bull call spreads. We have a net $6,000 credit on the short puts. So again, now we have the $15 short puts, 30. We have 30 of the 1523 bull call spreads. Even after taking the loss on the roll, we have a net zero cost on the trade total. So the only negative on the trade is we could conceivably be assigned $45,000, 15 times 30 is $45,000 worth of Lebu if it's below 15 in 2024. Meanwhile, though, obviously we're going to roll it again if it goes down any further. But just for argument's sake, we'll just talk about it like this. So that's our risk. It's the same risk that we started with if we own the stock. No change in the risk at all. We have no cost in the trade. We put no cash into this trade yet. So we still have our full allocation block available, and the long-term portfolio allocation blocks of $200,000. Still have our whole allocation block available for the purchase of the stock, and we're only going to possibly use 45,000 of it. And if Lebu does go up, as soon as it's over 15, we are at least break even. Anything over 15 up to 23 is a bonus of up to $24,000 on our zero cost entry. So that's a pretty good fix, considering that since we bought this, since we bought it in April, that's not it. Since we bought it in April, it's fallen from the 60s to 15. That is the power of options, but it's because we took a cautious entry to start, because we didn't take it betting it was going to go higher. And this is the problem people have. A lot of people, they always want to bet up. And they always want to try to make a lot of money right away. Whereas I said in April of last year, where is it? I said in April of last year when it was testing 60, I said, well, I bet it's not going to go lower than 30. I was wrong. But I said, I bet it's not going to go lower than 30, and you can sell these $7 puts. So we're really betting it's not going to go lower than 23. Okay, and I was wrong. But you know what? My being wrong there is a lot less painful than if I had bet that it was going to go from 40 back to 60. You don't have to swing for the fences. We were just looking to make a very simple play. And since we made that simple play, it is very easy for us to adjust it now, even in this complete meltdown of Lebu. It is very easy for us to adjust it now and turn it into a trade that can still make some good money. Not what we dreamed of. I'm sorry, it's actually more than we dreamed of, because the most we could have made originally was $10,500. And what margin requirement was there? The same 30 times 15, the same $45,000 less, you know, if your portfolio margin or whatever, but the same $45,000 commitment is being made there as is being made now. So I haven't increased the commitment at all. I have decreased my cash intake. Instead of having $10,500 in my pocket, I'm giving back $4,500 to make the change. But I still have $6,000 in my pocket. Then I'm going to spend $6,000 on the spread. I have $0 in my pocket, so I spent net $0. Same $45,000 commitment, spent $0, and now we played out for 2 years. But if it works now, we're going to make 8 times the 30, which is $24,000. So instead of making $10,000, if it all goes well, we're going to make $24,000, although we're taking 2 years to do it instead of 1. But that's the beauty of playing conservatively. You can, even in a disaster like this, you can still recover. You can still find things to do. And by the way, again, this is all part of the process we go through on every single one. When it's funny because in the end I say nope, or I say fine, or I say let's wait and see. I go through all this whole process on every single one. That's why it's such a nightmare for me during review weeks. It's like it takes hours and hours and hours and hours. But anyway, so to get to the conclusion to say this one's worth adjusting because we have a very good risk reward profile on the adjustment. So worth doing. I'm not going to cut it. I'm sure it's hell not going to pay $14,000 not to take that chance. That doesn't make any sense at all. You got to do the math though. You got to run all the probabilities. Here's Wayfair. Now Wayfair, we're also going to roll it, but I'm not going to take a bullish position. I never liked them in the first place. Fortunately, we sold $170 puts for 35 bucks, so we're basically at 135. They're at 128 now. So hopefully they don't get worse. Oh, I know. I didn't want to roll it. I didn't want to roll it because I'm hoping they bounce back this year. I don't want to be in Wayfair for another year. I don't like them. They're left over from a short. We already cashed out the short. Even if we cashed this out now and took the loss, we're fine on the overall spread. But I didn't want to cash out the short. And our goal was 150, by the way. So our target was 150. We hit 150. We cashed out our spread. We're good. But this short is left over. The short puts are left over. I think 135 is a realistic number. And if we stay at 135 or get over 135, this thing doesn't cost us any money. And it expires and we're done and we walk away. So I don't want to pay not to be in it. Especially when they're showing negative $12,000. Why should I pay $12,000 when my net is 0? Or, well, in this case, it's only five contracts times 7, $3,500. So at the moment, I'm down $3,500 if it expired today. So I'm not going to pay $12,000. I'm not that scared of it. And again, I could easily roll it. Which one was that? Cannot remember. 170 puts, and they're currently 60 bucks. So we have the 170 puts. That's not them. What? Oh, I'm sorry, that is them. No, wait. 2023. Because that's not Wayfair. That is the problem. Because that's not Wayfair. Holy crap. I got that COVID brain thing where I lost 10% of my function. Okay, so 60 bucks. There you go. So that's 60 bucks. And what else is so first of all, what else is 60 bucks? Well, the 160 is a 60. That's a bullshit roll. So what's 30 bucks? Well, the 110s. Now we're talking. So if I wanted to, I could roll it to the 110s. Obviously not as attractive as Lebu. Those things have some really high premiums. But I could roll to the 110s and have 10 short 110s for $110,000 obligation versus my 5 short 170s for an $85,000 obligation. That extra, for the extra 15,000, I would certainly rather lower my thing. But the problem is, the real problem is I don't want this in my portfolio. It's a leftover annoying thing. So I would rather hold out hope and hope that it comes back and at least stays over 135 where we get out even. If I get out even on this, I'm going to be thrilled. I just didn't want to pay them off early. So all we really care about is getting back to 135. As long as that seems realistic, I don't see the point in rolling it or changing it or doing anything else. Now, we could conceivably roll to the 130s. Now, it's not worth it. I wouldn't do it. Nope, forget that. Nope. It's, oh, I'm sorry, wait, if it's 60 now, the 170s are 60. Oh, okay, that's not so bad. All right, so the 170s are 60s, and the 125s are 30. That's where we are now, is 125. So the 125s are 30. So since I'm willing to do a 2x roll next year to the 100, the 110s or the 105s, whatever the hell it is, it's 30 bucks. The 105s basically are 30 bucks, or at least the 110s. So I'm willing to do that roll next year as a 2x roll if I have to. Therefore, and again, it's about the fact that I'd like to be done with these sooner than that. Therefore, if I can do a 2x roll to the 125s now, it's the same thing. I could always do the other roll later. So I do the 2x roll now to the 125s. And what that does, though, is instead of, if W finishes at 135, instead of us barely breaking even, we would actually make all of our money. We'd actually make the whole profit that we expected. Because now we've lowered our bar now. So it does not make sense to sit on the 170s when we could roll to 2x the 125s. And even though that doesn't sound like a palatable change, the reality is after that, I can then roll down to the 110s. So we can pick up another $15 into the next year, probably do better than that as this year starts to expire. And of course, by July, the January 2025 will come out, and maybe we want to do that. But again, my main concern here isn't the money on the thing at all. It's the principal thing, and I don't want this clogging up my portfolio because I don't want them. Unlike the other puts in the long-term portfolio, I don't want to own this. It's just a leftover leg of a trade. Oh, where are we? Trucks. How did trucks get this way? What happened to them? I thought they were getting bought. I'm not happy about this. Something's wrong. What the frick is this? This doesn't make any sense. Raises dividends, secures notes. I could have sworn they were getting bought out. Maybe I got them mixed up with somebody else. Declining profitability, rising leverage. I gotta go over this whole thing again. Maybe it's their source of materials is in the wrong place or something like that. I don't know. That's annoying though. We got to take a look at that one. I got a feeling I want to press that bet. Oh, Brian says on YouTube, last week's webinar freezes at the 15-minute mark and there's no sound from then till the end. I'm sorry about that. We had a technical issue in the webinar, and it just basically stopped working. We had to restart it, and then unfortunately when we came back, the sound didn't record. There is no fix to that. It's just dead. So sorry about that. Yep, that's why you got to watch them live. You can't count on the technology. So where were we? Okay, so trucks. Now, so looking at trucks, we only have the bull call spread. It's only it's expiring now. I see. Oh man, we got screwed on that one. I didn't even realize. It's not trucks. I was thinking of somebody else. Oh, they were February and we sat on them. I am so pissed. Oh well, that's money out the window. They were totally in the money. Oh no, wait. Oh, these are February, they expired. These expired on the 21st. So this is not as bad as it looks, I think. It just has to be counted out. Where? Nope. Nope. February. Oh, thank God. Look, they're up in the 20s here. Okay, and this is a 15-22 spread. Oh my God. I was like, how did that happen? It's not trucks who's being bought out, but it's somebody with a T that's being bought out. Anyway, so no worries there. This is expired. That's why it's all screwed up. But they also pulled back tremendously, which is crazy. I like them for a new play, and I think I gotta find out why they went down so much. But now they're back to where we like them. These REITs have gotten cheap for no good reason. Anyway, I'm not going to go with long-term portfolio again. But the point is, you look down here and say, who's a bargain? That's very simple, right? Who's got a big sea of red? Cheesecake Factory, cheap. Oh, fantastic. We love Cheesecake Factory. Who's this? Facebook, still cheap. And we don't forget, we're not playing Facebook long. We're playing Facebook to sell premium. Holy crap, Halliburton. Look at Halliburton. That's crazy. So Halliburton is on fire. HBI. Hewlett Packard is doing good. Most of these guys are doing good. Intel's still cheap. No, Intel's not stock of the year. IBM's stock of the year. So IBM's doing good. Intel's still cheap, definitely buyable. And again, you don't know what's going on with the chips and so on and so forth. Lockheed's doing great, of course. Geez, it's hard to find anything cheap. It's hard to find anything on sale here. Moderna is getting killed, so they're real viable. Here we have the short puts in Moderna, and it's way below our target, although 200 minus 25 is 175. They're at 141. 180 minus 40 is 140. They're at 140. So we have a pretty big commitment to Moderna because I like them long term. Fortunately, the short calls are really pumping out the profit. So at this point, we probably want to buy back these short calls because it's going to take all the way to 2024 to make that last 30%. So I think we want to adjust this into a different position now. That's when I'm probably adjust. See, but you want to be selective. We're all the way at the ends, and we only picked a couple of things that we really want to adjust badly. Nothing. See, none of these. Just look at the nets and say, is this really need attention? And if it doesn't need attention, and again, I'm not doing a full review, but I'm saying if it doesn't need attention, I trust myself enough to say these were obviously good spreads. And if they're good spreads and the market stopped falling, they're going to pay off. Not to mention, we don't forget every month we vet these things. We go over them and over them and over them, which is what you should be doing, though, of course. And we make sure we love them. And in fact, for the last few months, I've been looking at them saying, I want to get rid of stuff. What can I get rid of? And we end up going through the whole portfolio. I'm like, can't do it. I love every single one of them. Even VTOL came back around. They were not performing well at first. There you go. Vertical takeoff and landing, baby. Flying cars. When did we do that one? Yeah, we did in December. And they're going to be like that because they're a startup, basically. They're a very new company. So we went in December, whenever, somewhere around here. They went up and we were happy. Then they went down and we were unhappy. Then they went up and now they're down. But we don't really care because it's a 25-35 spread with $30 puts for July. So we just hope that they're in an up cycle at the time. If they're not, we will probably roll it and adjust it because we want to stick with them. They're going to go through these cycles. Like pets. Wait, do we have pets in here? Nope, not in this portfolio. Here's Paramount. We're not even losing money in Paramount anymore. Pets. Yeah, look at pets taking off again. So you just gotta be there at the right time. They're gonna go. Some of these stocks just go up and down. They go in and out of favor. Oh, how about our buddies at SunPower? We have SunPower in like every possible portfolio, every nook and cranny in our portfolios has SunPower in it, and we've been piling it on for the last couple of months. So we're very happy about it moving back up now. Still nowhere near where we think it's going to be, but at least it's better than going down. All right. So anyway, going through this, there's really not even much that's doing badly. So no wonder we're still near our all-time highs, right? because we're not doing too badly. Here's Yeti. Yeti got cheap, and we just talked about adjusting Yeti. So it's very easy to go through this and just say, never say there's no trade ideas, because between these and between the top trade alerts, there's endless amounts of things that we can be buying. In fact, I think I just did a top trade alert. Yeah, Prudential. We had a Prudential yesterday. That was I forgot whose idea that was. Somebody's idea. It was a good idea. I bet Customs idea. And we had a Tupperware a few days, 2 weeks ago. Because who doesn't like Tupperware? I don't. Yeah, see, to me that's like a real staple. I don't think it's lost the appeal. I'm pretty sure everybody still has Tupperware and everybody still buys Tupperware. They don't have Tupperware parties anymore, as far as I know, but it's just one of those things you just buy. I mean, everybody's got some form of plastic containers to put food in. That's like a must. So, their sales are going well. Everything's fine. It's just a boring, solid company. So to me, when they're down, when they drop down like that, why not buy them? And again, when we came in, well, because it's February 28th, right? So here's the end of February. Over here, we got another chance to buy them down over here. And that's, we've been watching that line. It went down below, of course, during the crisis, practically to zero. Look where they were. They were 250. That's crazy. I mean, we should have paid attention then, but there were so many opportunities then that it wasn't one thing. But then again, there's a good example though. This is why we have the portfolios. This is why we have all the short puts in the long-term portfolio. These are things we'd like to buy if they get cheaper. They're not things we freak out about when they get cheaper. I wanted to buy Boeing if it went on sale. I said, if Boeing goes on sale, I want it. In fact, at $200, I'll sell the put for $30 because I absolutely will buy Boeing for $170. Look where it is. It's at $170. This is how we keep track of things. $170 was our target. It bounced off $170. That was my fundamental value target. Now, this is now, I said that in October. Wrong one. So where's October? So I said that, and again, this goes back to that same thing. When I felt Boeing was cheap, coming down to the 200 line, did I say, I bet Boeing's going to be 250 and I'm going to buy the 220, 250 spread, blah, blah, blah? No. I said, you know what? If Boeing gets much cheaper than this, if Boeing goes down another 20%, $40 below 210, I want it. Then I want it. I said, it's attractive to me now, but I don't want to buy something that's just attractive. Okay, I'm not a settler. I don't go to bars to settle. I go to bars. I want the most attractive girl, not one that's like passable. So when I'm looking for a price on a stock, I say if it gets really, really attractive, then I want it. Not settling. I'm not going to say, oh yeah, this is okay, because if Boeing's not on sale, something else will be on sale. But meanwhile, we got paid. We got paid $15,000. We promised to buy Boeing if it got to 170. That's what that is. I sold a 200 put for $30 for five contracts, so 500 shares. So I promised I would buy 500 shares of Boeing at 170, which is about $100,000, whatever, $85,000. So I'll buy $85,000 worth of Boeing, which is half an allocation block in the long-term portfolio, for $170. And while I'm waiting, they pay me $15,000 to think about it. So for $15,000, we've been paid to watch Boeing since November. And now finally it hit 170. But again, it's part of the discipline of the of having these portfolios. And the reason we do these monthly reviews, and we don't, if there's something really drastic and it feels like we need to make a trade adjustment, we'll make a trade adjustment. But generally, I try to only make adjustments when we do the reviews. And that's part of the discipline of learning that you shouldn't react to everything that happens. Don't feel forced to trade. It's like just sit and watch and wait. And then if the trade is still there, because there's two things that can happen. Either it's going to get cheaper. So when it hits 170, yeah, that was my target, but I don't know that I'm right for sure. In fact, if you look up the microwave oven theory of investing, so I have a microwave oven theory of investing, and then that basically says, you pick an arbitrary number. And I can sit here and say, oh, it's not arbitrary because I calculate this and I calculate that. Who cares? I picked a number. It was 170. That's what based on what I knew in November, I felt 170 would be the number, would be the line that held. Okay. So now here we are though, 4 months later, and it's at 170. Just because it hit 170 and I predicted 170 doesn't mean I know what I was talking about. I might have known what I was talking about then, but what's happened in the last 4 months? Why is it at 170? Maybe it got worse. Maybe something else happened. Okay, I happen to know nothing did. I've already looked. But maybe something else happened. Maybe this or that. Meanwhile, there's a war. That's a bad thing. Although Boeing has a military division, so it could be a good thing for them too. But actually the biggest problem is that Dreamliner still has issues, and titanium, a shortage of titanium is a big problem. Russia produces a lot of titanium. You don't know how long the titanium problem is going to hit Boeing. Now, Embraer, who we also invest in, EWJ, those guys just said they've got plenty of titanium. They said they have stockpiles of titanium. They're not worried about the backlog. Boeing hasn't made that statement yet. So that's an issue over there. We've got to find out what's going on with the titanium. You have to look at what's changed in the last 4 months. Is 170 still a valid line based on what we know today? Just because I said 170 4 months ago doesn't mean that when it hits 170, I should jump in and buy like an idiot. I still need to sit back, do my research, and make sure I still think that's my best use of money. And obviously, I'm leaning that way, though. I love Boeing, usually like to be invested in it, and this is a very good price as far as I know. And again, I think the biggest issue I have is the titanium, and I got to find out what the deal is with that. But that's all these are. These are triggers that tell you, oh, it's time to take a close look. It hit our target. This was our target. I'll buy ALK for 40 minus 5, which is 35. Well, I'm not going to buy it. It's over. But that's fine. Let it go. Okay, they're going to pay us $2,500 not to buy it. That's Alaska Air, by the way. Delta, we just talked about Delta. Was it not a top trade? I know we just talked about Delta, and I really like him. Look, Crocs is doing terrible. Cheesecake's still there, also still cheap. Is Crocs again? Oh, I didn't realize we did twice in a row. It's funny. There's a Money Talk review. I don't know. I know I was just talking about Delta, and I really like them. It's a good airline, and they're selling way below price. And I felt that they would they'll deal with the fuel issue. Oh wow, look at that pop. Okay, so maybe it's already being dealt with. But ALK is my more favorite airline, Alaska. I guess they bought Virgin. Apparently, they bought Virgin's North American routes, and their planes and their gates and everything else. So they bought that North American division of Virgin Airline got out of North America. But I like because that happened, because I was a big Virgin fan and I was very upset that was happening. But then when I looked into Alaska, I turned out I like them very much. So ever since then, we've been picking up Alaska whenever they get cheap. What else? Anyway, all right. So plenty of places to go when you want to find something to trade. And so we're not in a hurry and we're not panicked and we're not pressured into buying things because we've got cash. You know, Warren Buffett goes 2 years without making a trade. You know, but then when the time is right, when he sees something to buy, he buys it, and he buys a nice chunk of it. He doesn't generally go in baby steps. I tend to be more baby stepish. I say exactly what I was talking about with Bowie. I say, you know what, that's a great price, but if it gets much cheaper, then yeah, because I'm looking ahead and I'm saying, well, what if there's this and what if there's that? I didn't think there was going to be a war in the Ukraine, but you know, what if inflation is worse, and what if the Fed does this and everybody freaks out about the Fed and whatever was happening at the time? What if we have another wave of COVID, which could still happen, by the way, any minute? There's nothing at all that says there's still 45,000 people a day in America getting COVID. There's still 1,500 people a day dying, which is 45,000 people a month. Okay, so wait, let me see. Oh, I shouldn't change that page. That could break something. Baseball stadiums by capacity. See, I'm not the only person who's ever asked that question. All right, so 45,000 people a month are dying in America of COVID. There are only 8 baseball stadiums bigger than that in America. And there are, wow, what is this bullshit? Wow, they're counting like, I guess they're counting like every little tiny field, not major leagues. So I guess you fall out of the majors here. TD Park, Omaha is not it. This 29. So there's 29. I think Major League, no, Williamsport is stuck in there. Williamsport's a big place. Anyway, so it's 28, 29, whatever. So there's 28 stadiums, and only 8 of them, baseball stadiums, have a capacity for more people than die in America on a monthly basis. Still in COVID. There was an article today, in fact, not to keep bouncing around, but was it the Atlantic? It was a good article about how we're exactly what I keep talking about that, but this guy had a very good take on it. It's like, how have we become so passe about death? Oh, don't tell me I lost it. Profitless. 5G, corruption. How many deaths? Here. How did this many deaths become normal? I highly recommend reading that. It's a good article. I mean, this is crazy. So anyway, not to get into that because it's another hour topic that I don't feel like discussing right now. But we have worse things happening than COVID now. Isn't that great? But I mean, there you are, right? Because 45,000 people a month are dying of COVID, and we are not. We're done. We have moved on. We are not interested anymore. It's like, so, oh, well, what are you gonna do? People die. Now, that many people die of cancer. That many people have heart attacks. That many people have, die in car crashes. Pretty much something in the neighborhood. That's there. You have to deal with acceptable numbers of fatalities, of rates of morbidity, whatever they call it. I mean, look, people die of old age, people die of this. Everybody's dying of something. Every year, we have what, 300 million people? For about 3 million people a year must die, right? So every year, about 3 million people die of something. So you want to point fingers and go COVID and go that and go that. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's wrong if it's preventable, but frankly, auto crashes are. It's a question of how much money you're willing to spend to keep people safe, right? Heart disease, cancer, also. How much money are you willing to spend on screening, on proactive measures? How much you willing to invest on healthcare in this country? There's a number. You can decrease it. You can decrease it radically. I mean, realistically, we look with cancer and heart disease, they know that there are countries where they hardly have any because they eat certain diets. So therefore, it's a very simple concept. You just basically, not force, it's a bad word, but you basically encourage strongly everybody to eat a certain diet. But what would that mean? That would mean going to the grocery store and taxing the crap out of things that are bad for you and subsidizing things that are good for you. And advertising and having, you know, what we used to have when Kennedy was president, we had the President's Council on Physical Fitness or something like that. And Arnold Schwarzenegger used to be in charge of that thing. And you basically gear people to do it. In Europe, the doctors are rewarded for positive outcomes. So the doctors, it's their job to talk to you and say you should, you know, they don't just say, oh, you shouldn't smoke, but they basically will sit there and educate people and say, this is how you should be eating, this is how you should be exercising, this is how you should be not smoking this, you should be not drinking that. You know, doctors are rewarded for healthier patients, for having healthy patients. They actually make more money for having patients who are less sick, which is the exact opposite of what we do here. You know, but also you can't allow cigarette companies and sugar companies and things like that to be running your economy and running the lobbyists and so on and so forth. You can't allow those if you really want to take care of stuff. That's the thing, though. You have to choose what you're going to fight, how much you're willing to fight, and what you're going to pay for it. And it's all doable, but there's a point where you say it's not worth it to me. We have decided it's not worth it. We've decided the masks and the social distancing and the closed restaurants and not being able to go to the movies and blah blah blah, not worth it. Not worth 45,000. Not worth 45,000. Not worth 600,000 people's lives per year. It's not enough incentive. And except unless it's you. And when it's you, everybody suddenly goes, why didn't the government do something about this? Why didn't somebody? It's so crazy. But also the thing is, it's not a disease that's particularly hitting. It's not like a lot of young people. It's not like polio. Polio is tragic. Polio hit children. So, you know, something hitting children disproportionately, or chickenpox, measles, things, you know, notice the things that we attacked were things that like would hit children. And that's something that parents freak out about, right? Once you're 50, 60 and you die of COVID, nobody cares. They're like, ah, well, should have been healthy. You should have done this. You should have done that. So, you know, do we get used to living with it? Whatever. But point was, which I digress. Point was that we have done nothing to stop another wave of much worse COVID. We are giving up on this wave, allowing it to hopefully peter out by itself. And by petering out means infecting all the people it's going to infect. And it will keep reinfecting just like the flu virus does. It'll reinfect every year and become a seasonal thing. And it's COVID season. Oh, well, you know, people die. What are you going to do? So even as it diminishes, it's still going to be a seasonal thing that we're going to have to deal with. But meanwhile, in any given time, it's like a ticking time bomb. There, at one point will be a variation that the people who were immune, who built up immunity. And by the way, you don't have to have COVID to get immunity, and you don't have to have a shot to get immunity. It's something people don't understand. You can build an immunity to a virus by being exposed to the virus, which pretty much everybody in America has been exposed to COVID at some point. You can be exposed to a virus mildly, and your body will fight it off just like it fights off anything that comes in there. So if you have a teeny amount of COVID that gets in you and your body fights it off, you will naturally build up an immunity even without developing the symptoms. Like, you ever get a slight cold or a scratchy throat and you say, ooh, I'm getting a cold, and then it goes away? That's your body fighting off a disease. It starts infecting you, your body says, and it fights it. So depending on how much virus you get, you can get a little bit of COVID virus that somehow comes in contact with you. It can start to infect you, and if you have a good immune response, it can go away, and you build up a natural immunity. That's what the whole, that's behind the whole herd immunity concept. You don't have to get it you don't have to get COVID. You can be exposed to it and be part of the population that is good at fighting it off. And this thing might have something to do with blood type now. But there's certain people who are going to be better at fighting it off than other people. And if you naturally let it move through the population, people will develop better immunity to it. And after a while, it becomes a much less annoying, mild virus. But it's not going to be as mild as a cold. It's going to be basically like a flu virus. And people are going to die all the time from flu. But we die all the time from flu. 64,000 people a year die from flu, but that's a lot less than COVID. We don't mind 64,000 people a year dying from flu. You know why? Because to stop 64,000 people from dying from the flu would be a real pain in the ass. And expensive, so we don't do it. But again, what's the difference? Because the flu doesn't kill kids. It obviously does, but not as a rule of thumb. Chicken pox, mumps, measles, polio kills kids. People that freaks people out. I mean, stop it. It's unfair. It is unfair. Of course, it's unfair. It's unfair when a child is dead before they're even 20 years old or something like that. It's crazy. It's never good to die of anything, but it's just, when you lose a child, it's unimaginable. So we decide what we're going to live with. We make these choices, not consciously, but as a society, we tend to make these choices. COVID generally is for the most part killing older unvaccinated people. We don't care about older unvaccinated people the same way we don't do enough to stop them from getting cancer or heart attacks. But the problem is cancer and heart attacks aren't the kind of things that suddenly spread and become more virulent and go through the population like wildfire. COVID at any time can do that. And that's the danger of not getting on the ball and wiping it out. China has been trying to wipe it out completely, but the problem is, how can you wipe it out completely when the rest of the world's not participating? So that's the flaw in their whole plan. They did a great job of stopping COVID, but the problem is, unless they constantly have their borders closed and constantly monitor people and constantly, unless that's the rest of their lives, they can't stop it because nobody else helped. Nobody did it with them. Everybody else said, we'll just get COVID, it's okay. But anyway, so that's an overhang also that's going forward. What is this, yesterday? What was I looking for? We did our STP review. Talked about Prudential. What do we look at here? Gold. Gold is doing good. Notice gold. Oh, here, this is a good one too. Here's gold and material is back near its all-time high, or I think it's an all-time high, whatever it is. But here, gold, the stock is still quite a bit below. We still have a good 20% to go higher on Barrick Gold. So, assuming gold doesn't go down too tragically, we should probably see Barrick starting to catch up and definitely get back over 25. I'm thinking like 2750 is about where I want to start looking to cover, maybe. I talked about Apple, talked about the Qs. Notice Apple and the Qs, how close they move. So the Qs, this is what's saving the Qs, is to see how Apple, you can't drag it down too much. Apple's not gonna drop 20%. Apple is too good. Apple makes too much money. Apple is doing too many things. They're a bargain when they get down to 140. 140, they're a huge bargain. So it's hard for Apple to drop that much. And that's why we were never that bearish on the market, because if Apple's not going to go down, how is the market going to go down? Apple is such a big chunk of the indexes. And honestly, that was the main reason we don't think it's going to go down 40%. That's the main reason we have the chart that we have stops where it does. We don't think we're going to need a lower chart than that, but we will see. It was pretty scary. Yes, it's pretty scary. When was that? It was like yesterday when 13.5 on NASDAQ went red. That's crazy. Here, what was that doing? Oh, right here. So yeah, here's the hourly chart. So I mean, you know, we hit this a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and now we tested it again. Now, if that firms up to be a nice bottom, that's great. But again, you got to zoom out and say, oh, wait a minute. So basically what happened is we did it here, and now we tested it here. And if we're having, it's like a ball going down the stairs, right? If you have a little bounce, then you go to the next step and you have bounce, but if the bounces are getting weaker and the ball is still going down the stairs, it can keep going for a very long time. But 13.5 is the 20% correction. If this line starts to become resistance, excuse me, if it starts to become resistance to the upside, it's a whole new ballgame. And that's what we got to watch. And that's why the weak bounces matter. And 14.1 is your weak bounce. So if we can't get over 14.1, we're still in a very bearish situation on the NASDAQ. And then I always go back to Apple and say, can Apple go lower? How is Apple being impacted? Because again, you know, the rest of the NASDAQ, it doesn't matter what it does, frankly. If Apple decides it's going up, it's going to take everybody up with it. And if Apple goes down, the rest of the NASDAQ is screwed. But there's the thing, on its own, I don't see a reason Apple would start going down if the NASDAQ isn't going down. Apple, by default, should be higher. Because Apple, I mean, I think we did this recently, but this is what the NASDAQ is all about. And it wasn't Apple. I never thought the NASDAQ was Apple. I never thought had a problem. It was the ridiculous, overpriced other stocks in the market that I objected to with the NASDAQ, and that's why we shorted. That's why the NASDAQ was our primary short. Despite Apple, it was way overvalued. Now, Apple, that's right, I forgot how crazy that is. Apple is going to make $100 billion this year. They're going to, and not only that, though, it's a 25% margin. On $400 billion in sales, they're going to make $100 billion. That is insane. That is beyond crazy numbers. And so they're going to make $100 billion, and you can buy the whole company for $2.5 trillion for 25 times earnings. Okay, it's you got, and you say, well, is it a growth company? Well, yeah, it's a growth company. In 2020, it was 57 billion in 2020. And Apple does this. This is how Apple goes. They do things and they grow in a spurt because they've got new lines and so on and so forth, and new stuff comes out. So now they've got Apple TV, and they've got the Apple Music, of course. They've got the App Store. They've got the obviously the iPhone, iPad, the Macintosh, blah blah blah, all that crap, all their legacy stuff. And that, but now is coming the car stuff, the CarPlay kits that you see all the time. I mean, I think every time I rent a car, I got a CarPlay in it. My car doesn't have it, but whenever I rent one, it's got CarPlay. And the home kits, and now they're making their own, but supposedly they're going to make their own electric car. And if you think about it, let's say Apple's electric car, which has got to be cool as shit, right? If they end up being valued like Tesla, it's another $1 trillion on the company. It's another 25% up from here on stuff like that. So are they a growth company? Yeah, they're a growth company. They've got lots of ways still to grow and make more money, even though this number is ridiculous, because this number is not far below Walmart's total sales. And Walmart's total sales includes Apple products. There's a good amount of Apple products in Walmart's total sales. And Walmart is 10%, keep that in mind, Walmart is 10% of all consumer spending. Probably 5% to 10% of that is Apple products at Walmart, and Best Buy is 20% of Best Buy sales are Apple products. And then Apple by itself, though, is $400 billion in sales. just ridiculous, stunning amounts of money. So, and again, we are not buying Apple head over fist here because this is 25 times earnings. If you get to 20 times earnings, and I got to buy it. And so that's how I calculate it, by the way. So when I'm saying, when will I buy Apple? I'll buy Apple when it's 20x. So when it's 20x, that is going to be 20% down from where it is now. And where it is now is $160. So 30 bucks off 160 is 130. So my absolutely, I will buy Apple for 160. I really, although now mentally I'm going to adjust it and say 140. So 140 on Apple, I'm all over it. So if Apple, for some reason, it got to 150 the other day. So if the market crashes and we get down to 140, Apple will once again be a big piece in our portfolio. It already is, though. It's we have these short puts, and see, this is kind of funny now. We sold the September 105 puts for $7, and that was only in September. That's hard to imagine that even happened. But look where we were in September. See, remember what I said about 140? In September, the same thing, the same cautious, boring bullshit that I always do, right? Even though it was at 140, I said, you know what? I can't say, how could you not sell the 105 puts? Wait, what number? That seems so low. Yeah, how could you not sell the 105 puts for $7? I don't remember why we picked the September 105 puts. I really have no idea. But, oh, it's 2023 September. Maybe that was all that was out at the time. So anyway, so for whatever reason, though, we chose to sell those for $7. So our net entry is like $98. That's insane. Why on earth would I not want that? Why do we only do 10? But we got paid $7,000 for making a promise. It's never going to happen. We're never going to get to buy it for that price. And if we do, we're never going to be upset about it. But see, we were cautious there. But really, Apple is the huge position in the butterfly portfolio. So we don't need Apple anywhere else, because Apple is a monster position in the butterfly. We have 160, 120, 150 spreads. That's for January coming up. And that's a $480,000 spread. And we only paid, what is that? Not even 120. We paid $80,000 net dollars for that spread. And we've sold many puts and calls against it. So our net cost on this thing is like $0. So that's where Apple is a big position for us. That's the only portfolio we really have it in. And like I said, when it took a dip in, and that's what happened. So it took a dip in September, and this position took a hit, but I didn't want to add anything to this position. But I said, oh my God, let's sell some puts in the long-term portfolio. How could we not? Because it was so cheap. But that's the point. When you see a position that's doing badly or doing well, you just think to yourself, what could how can I take advantage of this? How can I take advantage of this outsized move? And oh, what was it this morning? There's something we were looking at this morning that's making a crazy move. I want to see if I finish here. Oh, here's Apple with their new stuff. This is crazy. I don't want to be boring about it, but 2.5 terabits a second internal bandwidth for the processor, 32 core neural engine, which is gobbledygook, but 32 core. There was a while, like this is 5 years ago, when 4 core processors were the rage. And now they got a 32 core processor, 800 gigabyte per second memory bandwidth. So in other words, the memory transfers data internally in the computer at 800 megabytes per second. It's effectively able to move the Library of Congress from one place to another in a second. They entirely take all the books and all the information in the Library of Congress and just move it the second you ask for it. It can't be pushed to your screen like that, or how could you possibly take the information in? But internally they can do these things. It's really incredible. And I would say this is nothing compared to quantum computers, which is the next thing that we're going to be baffled by. But quantum computers, because they still haven't solved the problem where they have to run these computers at practically near absolute zero temperatures to make them work. So it's a long way from being on your watch. But eventually, eventually they solve all these problems. But right now, the way you'd use a quantum computer is that your computer will communicate with the cloud, and the cloud will do all the heavy lifting and give back the information. But having 5G and the internal processes of the machines and so on and so forth means that we will benefit from all this stuff, even though it has to be done remotely. Okay, that was that, and then we're up to today. Oh, what were we talking about this morning? Something was very important this morning. Oof, look at poor oil. 108, so sad. A lot of news. So, oh, and by the way, when I'm, I share this news stuff I'm reading. This is probably a tenth of what I actually look at, but these are the ones I find interesting. So when I'm going through the news, though, I generally will be like, that's positive, that's negative, that's positive, that's negative, that's positive, that's negative. And I kind of keep a tab. It's like counting cards, right? So I keep a tab of whether the news is trending up or down for the market. What's, are the actionable items of the day good or bad? And that's how I kind of figure out if it's going to be a good or bad day in the market and what's going to happen and whether or not we should buy or sell something, so on and so forth. Oh yeah, so overreactions, that's what I wanted to talk about. So we had oil, we had natural gas. Oh, I know, it's going to be one of these. I remember something I saw. Thor. Well, THO on 12/8, we jumped into them. And that's here, December. And at the time when we went into Thor, I said, oh, I don't know where that was. It's a shame. Where the hell was that? Ugh. That's weird. I thought I put it up somewhere. Anyway, at the time we went into Thor, I said we're going to have to wait for the March earnings to prove out, and the March earnings were just spectacular. They just gave a huge earnings growth. Look at what's happened since January. Okay, so, oh, I'm sorry, not that's last January, but what happened since last year? Double. So the towable backlog, in other words, it's like Boeing. Okay, so they've got a backlog of $17.7 billion in orders. It's gone up from $5 billion. Sorry, it's gone up from $10 billion. It's gone up 70%. Oh, it says 63.9. So it's gone 63.9% in a year, their backlog. Now, then you go, you have to put things in context. So what does that mean? It's like, okay, it's just a number. What's it mean? Well, if you look at Thor, and this is what I was talking about back in September when we jumped into it, or November, or whatever it was. They only make $17 billion worth of stuff a year. Last year they made 12. This year they're going to make 15. So their backlog they're backed up over a year. They got a year and a half of orders that are waiting to be filled, and it's growing. And that's because we identified this as a huge trend that we wanted to get on top of, because we said the RV sales are really exploding, and you can see in there, so their dealers are stocking up. They've got a huge backlog of inventory. They're making fantastic money on it because they're very big on buying American, this company. So they're not being hit by the supply chain issues. And again, these are all things we looked at when we made our bet. And that was in December. But we knew it would take time, but it's a 2024 play. But you can still play this, even with the pop today, you can still play this because it's much worse. It's $5,000 worse than when we came in. So when we came in, 29 minus 18 minus 11, we came in for zero, for net zero money. And now it's a $5,000 credit. That's a $5,000 credit. So you get paid $5,000 to take this $30,000 spread. Now, you could do it, and I would do it, frankly, I would do it with lower strikes and spend a little bit more money. I wouldn't have to take the credit, but it's still a perfectly good play. People completely misjudge them, and I'm very happy with that price target of 130 in 2 years. MasterCard is showing spending came in pretty good. Look at the growth of spending. That's a biggie. Sales growth versus pre-pandemic. So that's a good comparison like that. So look at this e-commerce, 85%. E-commerce is still growing like crazy. But not much over last year, right? But the pandemic really banged up e-commerce. The total retail, ex-auto, 17% more than 2 years ago. Even in-store grew, and that's funny. Everybody's betting in-store is dead. So e-commerce grows and in-store grows. But also another thing, very misleading about e-commerce, you got to realize how small e-commerce is in the grand scheme of things. It's really, you know, if we've got $6 trillion of retail spending, e-commerce is probably 10% of it. You know, and that's why people talk about these numbers and they act like it's going to be this incredible thing. It really is not as bad as you think it is for the retailers. And of course, the retailers are the same people who are selling it anyway. The same retailers who have a store are selling it online. So department stores, though, not very exciting. Apparel, surprisingly, clothing doing very well. Electronics up. Furniture and furnishings, 17%. Holy shit. Groceries, now that's inflation. Jewelry, doing well. Remember we used to invest in SIG. Shoot, I forgot who they're called. Anyway, well, SIG, I think they were. And luxury without jewelry is also doing well. Restaurants, 24%. Also, though, you have to look at inflation, though, and think about how much of that is inflating prices. There's another chart, though. Pfizer, I said, why would people not be buying Pfizer? Pfizer, here's a news article on Pfizer. Pfizer phase 3 study, blah, blah, blah. The COVID pill for people less than 18 is approved, blah, blah, blah. You know, which we kind of thought was going to happen. With its 2021 results last month, Pfizer issued an initial review forecasting $22 billion. This is a brand new pill that treats COVID. After you get COVID, you take the pill. Brand new pill, brand new sales, $22 billion on it is their projection. That is freaking incredible. You know, I don't know what people are selling. They make more money than like the next 4 companies combined in biotech. SunPower sees kicking back up very nicely. How do you not bet on solar energy? How could you not think solar energy is the future? I don't even understand the concept. I don't know what people are looking at. Oh, and here, this is what I said about it back in February, which wasn't even long ago. It was only a month ago. And we got more aggressive on the SunPower play because I said, this is stupid. You know, this is a mega trend that is obviously happening. There's no question about it. Look at the airlines popping too. These numbers on these airlines. Booking.com used to be Priceline, Expedia. We were talking about doing these guys, but they weren't cheap. Their pricing, they were pretty high in pricing. So I was not very excited about that. Marriott, Hyatt, IHG, Carnival, even the cruise lines. That's crazy. I still can't get behind the idea of getting on a cruise. What else? I thought there was one that was like an overreaction thing. Oh, Activision. Well, so Activision, Microsoft is trying to buy them for $95, and very weirdly, they keep trading at $80. now, and I said it could be held up by regulators, and Activision have a Me Too lawsuit where they've had a very bad internal culture, a very rapey sort of environment at the place. And they got several things going on there. But Microsoft, after knowing that, Microsoft came in and said, we'll buy it. And I think that's what they were waiting for, though, was an opportunity, because Microsoft didn't want to pay $100. Or I'm sorry, if they came in here, they would have had to offer 110, 120. So getting it for 95, they consider a decent deal. And as I pointed out, Microsoft is all about developers. That's like Steve Ballmer doing his developer dance. You know, that's their whole thing, is to corner the market and take over. So by taking over these guys, because what is the metaverse? See, Facebook talks about the metaverse, but Activision, which has online games, you know, like Warcraft. Okay, so you go into Warcraft, and you actually go to the tavern and you sit with your friends at the tavern and you order drinks and you buy stuff, and you go to the weapon shop and you buy weapons, and you buy outfits and you put on outfits. This is the metaverse. That's what the metaverse is. They've been running a successful metaverse for years. They just didn't call it the metaverse, but that's what the metaverse is. And so Microsoft wants to buy the people who actually know what they're doing, and they know how to program things. They know they can expand. In fact, you know, in Christmas time, they do in the game, they do Christmassy stuff, and it's seasonal. They open up special branches. There's special guys walking around, characters. This is everything you want to do in the metaverse to engage in e-commerce. And a lot of Activision's money now comes from these in-game purchases. So they're doing everything that Facebook says they want to do in the metaverse is already being done. So, you know, it's a logical purchase from Microsoft, because it's really about the engineers. It's not about, it's not like Microsoft wants to own Warcraft. That's not really their main goal, but Microsoft, you know, Microsoft wants the people who design it to work on it. Now, unfortunately, that means the game's probably going to go downhill, because they're going to want them working on other projects. But these are this is a team of designers and the management and the creative people that support them, all together working as a team, all wrapped up in a little bow that Microsoft can take. And that's what they're trying to do. Now, will it go through? Will it get antitrust? We don't know. But still, it seems like a very respectable way to play. And I had said, and again, I'm a cautious guy. So, so I said to RN, selling the 2024 $70 puts. So again, I'm being super conservative, right? They've got an offer. I think 65 is a fair value for the company if it doesn't get bought. So I'm being conservative and saying that the 2024 70 puts for 450 puts you in for just over 65 right here. And meanwhile, you're going to collect $4.50. And also important though, if they get when the deal gets completed, the puts go worthless. So if the deal gets completed above $70, sorry, the puts go worthless. No matter what the price is, the puts go worthless, and you're done. So you can collect your full 100% way early on this deal. That's what's nice about it. So even though you're taking the 2024s, if the company ceases to exist and the puts expire worthless, then you collect and you're done. So you don't get put off by the amount of time you're committing to. It's not a big deal. All right, so that's the amount of time I want to commit to. Let's just see if anybody has any important questions before we shut this thing down. Let's see. JC says, on the UL butterfly play, what would you sell to replace the nearly worthless May 55 call? Would you wait for more of a comeback, or given the war, would you just sell something now? Let's see what that is. So UL. So we sold the May 55 calls for $115, and they're now 20 cents. Well, I mean, since it's May, you kind of want to buy it back out of principle, you know, just to clear the spot. That's interesting, because I was looking for an example of this. UL took a dive you know, based on the Russia stuff, they really got clobbered, and unnecessarily. When this is what you want to do when you see overreactions like this in the market, you want to take advantage of it. So yes, definitely for 20 cents, I would buy it back, buy back the short calls, and then if it goes up, great, you clear the spot. If it doesn't go back up, we're still going to have to sell something in May. But all you're sacrificing is the possibility of collecting that last 20 cents between now and May. I would certainly rather have a free spot open so that if it goes back up, I make the money. If it doesn't go back up, I'm going to sell another call anyway. So there's no utility function to that short call at this moment. So yeah, that is right. You don't want to be sitting on that if you don't have to. Now the $45 puts, oh, that's 2024, so we're not worried about those, even though they're showing a loss. Doesn't matter because it's 45 minus 380 is net 4120. Not worried about that, and we like them. We had been, I see what we did. We bought 20 longs, sold 15 covers in 2024. That left 5 open here, and we sold 10 of the short calls, and because it's hard to get in trouble. So all we're really doing is overselling by 5. So we're collecting $1,000. If we collect $1,000, this wasn't even very long ago. So for 80 days or 90 days, we collected $1,000, and we have 8 quarters to sell. So there's like $8,000 in potential sales here against a spread that we only spent $9,000 on. So all is very good here. There's nothing wrong with the spread. There's no reason to change it. And yes, for 20 cents, of course, I buy that back. So we profit we'll profit $950. And then if it pops up, we'll sell 10 more of something else. If it doesn't pop, we'll sell 10 more of something else. But if it doesn't pop, the difference is we would sell. So we collected 900 so far, right? Cashing this in. We're up 950. UL. So if it pops, we will probably sell, let's say, August seems like a long time. So let's say May. So if it pops up, we'll probably want to sell it the May 5250s or the May 50s for at least $1 something, right? Collect another $1,000 by selling 10. If it doesn't pop, if it lays flat at 45, we can sell the May 45 calls for $260, $275, and that's $2,750. And then we could use that money to roll 20 of the 2024 50s. These guys are 360, and if we roll them to the 45s, it's 560. So that's $1. Costs $2,000 to roll to the 45s, and the 40s are too much. They're $750. That seems like a lot. Yeah, so those are too much. So I wouldn't want to roll to the 40s, but for the 45s, of course. So we would sell more short. Sell more short calls, collect money, then roll these guys down using the money that we just sold, and we still have $1,000, $2,000 back in our pockets from the sales that we made. And that's how you do it. So we're gonna build a better spread from selling the call. So in other words, there's no reason not to do that. It doesn't make sense not to do it. So step 1, and then so once you say the whole play is what you want to do, you say, okay, now let's initiate step 1. Step 1, buy back the short calls. Step 2, wait and see whether we flatline at 45, in which case we're going to sell the 45 calls and use that money to roll down our long calls. Or if it goes up, then we have no need to roll down our long calls, and we'll just sell the $50 calls. And then we're boom back on track to where we want it to be. And that's all. It's just like, it should be like little adjustments that you make along the way. You shouldn't be forced to do anything drastic. And that's the key to these positions, is that's why you see these funny little imbalances and stuff. It allows us to tilt one way or the other very easily and adjust our course as we're moving forward. And that's a good place to end it. All right. So thank you everybody for coming. I appreciate it. And we'll do it again next week. All right. Take care, everybody.